Ladies and gentlemen, it's Spoilerin time. And let me tell you what this is. In case you're like, hold on, I'm at the Cordkillers side. I was in the Cordkillers feed. Why is this not Cordkillers? Cordkillers is the show where we tell you what you need to know to be able to watch things. This is the show where we watched the things, and now we're going to talk about them, including episode 5 of season 5 of Justified, episode 3 of season 2 of The Expanse, the second week of The Expanse, but they gave you 2 episodes at once last week. Episode 5 is season 1 of The Young Pope. I know they are finished their season, but we're a little bit behind there. And of course, I'm Tom Merritt. You're Brian Brushwood.
Heck yeah, a.k.a. Victory Lap McGee, as we check in on the Winter Movie Draft.
Don't take this from me, Brian. I'm
still
still in first place.
Hey, man, don't blame me.
Week.
Blame John Wick when it happens and his $30 million opening weekend. Or better yet, that I bought for $7.
Listen, DTNS is $705 million. That's pretty much what we're going to be next week. Brian is $634 million. So you need $51 million out of Logan and John Wick and 50 Shades Darker.
Wait, no. It's about $70 million I need. And I just, I got whatever the rest of the run of 50 Shades Darker and John Wick Chapter 2, which, by the way...
71. You need $71 million.
Was just...
Maybe a couple other million that I might happen to trickle in from Collide, which will happen in 2 weeks.
By the way, John Wick is the most popular movie, the biggest money-making blockbuster since The Matrix Revolutions. For
the big question is, will John Wick unseat Hidden Figures, which is also still making money for you?
I'll have you know,
as your number one best buy.
Yeah, you know what,
Number
it might
one in the whole draft.
In fact, Hidden Figures made $131 million. I got it for $6. No,
and it's
there's
still
no
making
way.
Money. It hasn't stopped yet.
There's no way that John Wick outdoes that, because I paid $7 for John Wick, and it only made $30 million opening weekend. But
the other question I have is whether DTNS might still be in first place next week. So it's possible John Wick doesn't make all of the money you need, and that you won't get it from 50 Shades Darker. I think it's possible you will. I think it's going to be real close.
Yeah, if I was going to make a side bet action, I'm going to say that keep in mind 50 Shades of Grey released right before Valentine's Day, and a lot of people want to get laid by their wives on Valentine's Day. And that seems like a pretty reliable way to do it. And so... yeah, I think if I was going to bet, I would bet that I do unseat you by next Monday, and that Logan is just crazy victory lap money, because Logan's going to make all the money in the world.
Now, Collide, on the other hand, is not going to make any difference, but Get Out comes out the same week. Why didn't I get that one?
You know what? Because them's the rules of the game, sir.
I don't think Get Out would have made any difference either, but still, it's a better movie. I don't know. I haven't seen Collide. I shouldn't say that.
You want to swap? You want to trade?
Yeah, could we? No, I don't want to make T2 and everybody.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Off the record,
I'm curious.
The record, I'd give you both of them.
Yeah, I know. It's not going to make any difference because Logan's going to make all the money in the world.
Yeah, in fact, we're
going to have to start working on the summer movie draft now. You realize?
Yeah,
that,
no, we definitely do. It's great. What a fun game. Anyway,
yeah. Onward.
Let's talk about the Pope.
The Young Pope, episode 105. Now, if you didn't hear this, the hilarious gift of the Magi situation that Brian and I find ourselves in is that Brian, knowing that I've been lagging behind on the Young Pope, looked in our Cordkillers planning document and saw that I'd written down that I watched Young Pope episode 5 and said, well, you know what? I'll just hold right there on episode 5 so that we're on the same page next week. Whereas I, while not updating our doc, forged ahead saying, well, I know that Brian's real into the Young Pope, so I better just keep watching until I get to episode 8. And so now I'm ahead of Brian on the Young Pope.
Yeah. So you can, I mean, I don't know that there's really much to spoil on me. I'm going back to see exactly
he's
how
still
far.
Pope, and he's still young.
Well, that's the weird part, right?
No, I'm more thinking about people who watch the show who are like, it says 5th episode, and last week you spoiled episode 4 and said it was 103, Merritt.
We did update those show notes so people knew what they were doing.
Yeah. No, and I hope people caught that. But, yeah. So let's stick to what you watched last. What do you recall?
Man, unfortunately, like I said, I pressed pause last week in the middle of my chaos. I watched 4 and I believe the first half of 5. But it's weird to see the world of the young pope established, and it's clear that he's the wild card. We never know what he thinks. We get that he's putting up this old world, back to basics, Vatican first mentality. You're a believer, a non-believer, whatever. Did we talk about the visit from the fourth episode? I don't think we had gotten to the fourth episode. The visit from the Prime Minister of Iceland, and
she gives him the record.
Yeah. I thought all that was great. That was also the first episode we saw kind of a monster of the week show up, where it's like you got the guy with the stigmata, and that was the moment that I kind of pulled back a bit, because I was like, oh, I guess he's just gonna be Pope, and like Mulder and Scully, he'll just deal with stuff as it comes up.
Hey, there's a guy with stigmata. We better investigate.
Yeah, right. And it was fine. It was and it was cool to see that payoff when he decides to be a bully, and the guy comes home and there's the Vatican waiting for him. Is like, we need to talk. I can't do the guy's
but
accent.
in the next episode, we don't see the culmination of that. Like,
correct. Okay.
Nothing happens next. And that's one of the things about this whole series is they let stuff breathe. One of the reasons I was able to watch as many episodes as I did was I don't feel like I have to sit there and mull over everything that's happening. I can be a little distracted. I can do some physical things. I can't do reading or anything like that, but I can do some other stuff like while it's on, because they linger quite a bit.
Well, and that's the charm of the show, if it can be said to be charming, is that it is hypnotic and super rich on the visuals. Some people, I'm with you, Tom. Like, if I was in a movie theater giving this my full attention, you're either going to have an ecstatic out-of-body experience watching it with all the deep, rich visuals, like you're watching 2001 for the first time, or, dare I say, you may feel a little bit bored. But, like, to me, yes, it's visually rich. I do love the machinations of the engine of the Vatican and that stuff. But more importantly, just watching this battle of egos and the awkward stare-offs and trying to figure out, who's doing what to whom. I mean, that's enough to engage me. But then again, I'm not going to lie. I'm also doing other stuff while I'm watching it too.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that is impressing me, and I don't think this is spoilery, but I didn't really form this impression until a few episodes in, is that you don't actually know what's going on inside Lenny's mind, or Pius the 13th. You think you do. And he tells you things that make you think, oh, that's what's going on, that aren't actually what's going on. He has a plan, but he also doesn't have a plan. And he wants everyone to think he has more of a plan than he does. And so there's a lot here, which is it's writing a wonderful line of the holy men aren't entirely holy, but that doesn't mean they aren't holy. That doesn't mean, even if they don't 100% believe, it doesn't mean that they disbelieve.
Well, or I guess placed, as I understand it, as a very much an outsider, like even if they are working machinations for their own career, at the same time, doctrine dictates that they are also literally, as anything they do is defined as the will of God. And so at the end of the day, it's God's will that these machinations are happening. And if I'm winning, then that means, it's good that there's a battle between my team and the other guy's team. And we're winning this Super Bowl because God likes our idea more than the other guys.
But even more than that, and I think that's absolutely part of it, they also understand that just because they're winning doesn't mean God's on their side, right? Like, God's will takes a while to play out, and he may let you win for a while because he needs this other thing to happen that will require your downfall.
Right.
And even more than that, they're like, listen, I know that God doesn't manifest himself in front of me every single day. I know that there are practical things that we need to consider in order to make the church actually work. But that also doesn't mean that sometimes I am not impressed by something spiritual. These are all spiritual people. They may be jaded spiritual people, right? Especially Boello,
certainly jaded in the mechanics of the mortal realm. Hey,
but they haven't lost all their spirituality, and I think that's what's really fun to watch with these characters.
Question: which episode was the one where the Pope dropped a baby?
That killed me when I.
When the priest comes in and he's visiting the baby, and the priest is like, "Your Holiness," and he just turns around and throws the baby. Yeah,
yeah.
It was so great. I tweeted right when I saw him having trouble not knowing how to pick up. It was like, oh, cool. I'm like the Pope. I don't know how to hold a baby too. And then he just drops it.
And you're like, no, I'm better than the Pope.
I don't have to drop a baby like that. Yeah,
no, he did drop it on a bed.
Yes, but still, but again, if you've ever held a newborn mush baby, it's like there really is this wave of protection that you feel, and that level of distraction. That was a moment.
All right.
Anyway,
I got nothing else on the Young Pope. We can move on.
I'll tell you what. We're gonna wrap it all up. Next week we'll all be caught up. The last episode premieres tonight. I'll watch all of them, and we'll give our impressions about the whole series next week.
Let's get on to the Expanse with the second week, third episode, and we are seeing. We kind of ramped down from the big action attack scene of last week, and now we're dealing with the fallout from it, including the breakdown of relations between Holden and Miller.
Which, by the way, I think I owe an apology because, I did watch it all and I registered this is the big attack happening. They're going and finding people playing PlayStation VR or whatever. I was so dialed into the plot elements that I did not really appreciate how good that battle sequence in the second episode was until Bonnie watched it after I did, and she came in and she's just like, holy crap, that battle sequence. And I'm like, there was a battle sequence? And she's like, no, and this detail was right. And you see the railgun come through and you see all the particles float in midair until they do a banking maneuver. And then you watch them hit the floor. And then this, and this is Bonnie bringing up all these specifics. And I was just like, son of a bitch. And I ended up rewatching that whole battle sequence and and they're FedEx canisters. And it's like, yeah, man, this is really, really good. So I rewatched that, and it did a really good job of getting me all the way in. It's
worth pointing out because they do this in the books too, and I'm so glad they're doing it in the movies or the television show. It feels like movies.
Yeah, it does.
That they're like, no, this is actually how a battle in space would happen, and we're still going to make it exciting.
Yeah,
we're not going to cheat on the physics of it because Alex pulls off a hell of a move, and yet still has a problem. And I love in this episode, I mean, this is an essential character building moment, right? When they show Alex up there in the cockpit, and at first you're watching it, you're like, oh, does he suspect sabotage? What is he trying to do? And by the end of the episode, you realize, no, he's just such a perfectionist as a pilot that he's like, no, I should have gotten out of there without getting damaged. And I'm going to figure out how to do it next time.
Yeah, well, and you certainly see that in episode 3 as he's going back, reviewing the tapes, on and on and on. Significant moments in episode 3 that stuck out to me, and I'm sure they're different from what you noticed. Loved seeing Holden.
Detective Miller. Captain Holden.
I'm never going to remember. Loved seeing Miller get back into form.
Holding on to the captain's wheel. The Miller got a
You're not helping.
You're not helping, Tom.
You're not helping. Detective Miller getting back into character, getting back into form, shaving his head, sporting that mohawk, getting clean shaven. Outcast, which is, there's something in him that just insists on being that, and that's what he is. I get the strong sense that he is only temporarily an outcast at some point. I feel like his fate is intertwined with the rest of the Rocinante.
The Rossi, the Rocinante.
Loved the idea that what turns out to be vital information from the Eros experiment surfaces as remixed mixtapes from Eros. That was really good. I think, and I dug seeing Amos, that scene where him and Miller start drinking and straight shooting with each other felt really, from a character perspective, precious to me. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I mean, that tells you a lot about Miller. It tells you a lot about Amos. And the other Amos moment that I loved was when he realizes, because he overhears the captive talking about, he overhears them talking about the captive and saying, oh, this is a guy who no longer cares about people. He has no more empathy. And you see a light bulb go on in Amos.
Oh, dude. And you watch him go in and immediately engage with the guy. And you're like, wait, what? Wow. I guess he really clicked with him. But then he walks out, and I love that sideways out of nowhere. He goes, you ever deal with a pedophile? And he's like, nobody thinks they're a child rapist. If you talk to them about child rape, you're going to get nothing. But if you start talking to them about how girls look in the summer playing soccer, then you're going to get somewhere. I mean, it's like, it was great. It was a great moment.
No, and it just shows you the depth of experience that Amos has in his past, where he's like, oh, I think I know what kind of guy this is, right? And there's a little bit of the reaction of Amos going, oh, someone who lacks empathy. I'm also a little bit that guy too.
I'll tell you what, I don't buy, and maybe this is intentional, friggin' America blew up Russia's moon. That was messed up as a preemptive strike. And I never felt like you could bring me along on the team that commits a 9/11 or whatever, and it's possible to frame it in such a way where it's like, well, there really was no choice. I see it from their perspective. I didn't feel that at all. It felt irrational. It felt heavy-handed. I felt told that, well, that's just what they thought was the best thing to do, and that's fine. But I feel like the strength of the show is that I keep seeing things from different perspectives. Yeah. I see both sides, all three sides of the Cold War, and I have not felt that for this. And unfortunately, I don't feel much empathy from the Martians because they were absent in the whole first season. They were the mysterious black hole emotionally. And
no, I mean, they weren't absent, but we only got the Rocinante.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
We've got the crew of the Rocinante, which is one slice of them. But I agree, they didn't do as much to build up the Martian perspective. They're addressing that by bringing in Bobby Draper, and you're following her and identifying with her passion for the Martian side. But I think you rightly identify a rare weakness here, which is you don't. It's one thing, like, you have a great thing of like, what, you can't blow up their moon. They're like, it's not like our moon. It's just a little rock, right? It's not going to really change much for them. And you don't get the Martian side of that. You never see Mars reacting in the way that says, we really want to kill them, but we can't because of the balance of power and, et cetera. Like, you need that side of it, and you don't get it.
But Earth practically sketched out. They're all like, we could blow up their moon. Sure, they have more advanced ship, but we've got the numbers. And it's like, okay, well, you've definitely spelled out the nature of this conflict. Thank you for flatly stating it. You do get one very resonant, poetic statement from the Martian when they said they ruined our sky. Like that's it. When you look out every single day and the sky is literally ruined with the debris of what was one of your, because of course a moon is more than a moon. It's your myths and legends. It's what you saw after you kissed someone or whatever.
Although to be clear, like, I don't know how much it changes the sky, but it doesn't matter, right?
No.
Even if it was just a little pinprick of light that you barely noticed.
Correct.
That's a pinprick of light that's not there anymore.
Correct.
And there probably is a visible amount of dusty sparkles that were the moon.
Real quick, I'm going to blame myself on this one. But I thought that, yes, Detective Miller definitely murdered the big lead scientist guy who looked suspiciously like Monk but wasn't Monk. But Holden seemed a little bit just, over the top and like, you're worse than Hitler or whatever, especially for
that didn't play for you.
Well, it just seemed like a bit much. It was so outsized a fist shaking response that it almost in my mind, immediately guaranteed, like, yeah, that'll last 20 minutes. He's so mad that I don't believe he's really mad.
What they're pointing to is something that they demonstrated a lot in season 1, but we really haven't had reemphasized this season, which is Holden is an idealist. Holden has a very rigid sense of ethics and what's right and wrong. And Miller just trampled all over that in multiple ways, right? He not only shot someone in cold blood, he shot someone they needed for information. And Miller is a detective. He is supposed to uphold the law, not be the guy that goes willy-nilly shooting people in the head. And so I totally understand why Holden has that immediate angry reaction, but we haven't been reminded of those character attributes of Holden recently.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And unfortunately, we're seeing it manifested in a way that did more to distract me. Like, whoa, is there a problem, officer? And you're right. And weirdly, I'll never know what it's like to binge this all straight through, because my guess is if you watch it straight through, all of that season 1 stuff is still fresh in your mind.
Might still play,
and you're like, of course that's going to be how he's going to react.
Right, sure. And then of course, now I'm getting confused. We did get Bobby Draper, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the whole subplot with the guy who was born on Earth, but he's now a Martian.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they told me. I didn't see it or feel it, but this episode, a little more telling, a little less showing than I'd like,
Yeah, there's not a lot of action in this episode for sure. Even the Avasarala plot is a lot about, I need to send a message, and then she sends the message, which it didn't seem as dangerous as they built it up to be. But I guess any message to Anderson at this point is dangerous. So
yeah, what was the big tip at the end? Miller comes up and strikes a deal with the Cuddy of the OPA.
Yeah, Anderson.
Yeah, okay, Anderson.
The butcher of Anderson Station. No, Fred Johnson.
Yeah. And what was Anderson. The deal that he wanted again?
He wants to go back to.
Oh, that's right. They ambiguously are like, and this is the weapon, and then they show a thing that I have no context for that I don't know.
Oh no, that's the thing that they actually have they've showed you many times. I'm not actually surprised that you don't get it, because visually it isn't distinctive enough for you to separate it from the station. And I think that's a problem.
Correct.
That's the colony ship that the Mormons are building. And the idea is that thing could be a huge warship.
Got it. Okay.
And that's basically what Miller's saying is, I want to attack with that.
Man. Yeah, that's like, I've not heard about the Mormon colonists since last season.
Well, Miller went and interviewed them, though. Remember, he like walks in and is like, "Hey, tell me about your colony."
That's right.
Here.
Okay, yeah, no, I guess I did. They did lay it in front of me. I was just didn't follow. Oh well, 2 out of 3, not bad. I followed most of the show.
All, yeah.
There's a lot there. And by the way, I know I sound like an idiot, but it's like, you have the benefit of already having lived in this universe, in the books and all that stuff. I'm dealing only with the story and remembering stuff for the first time. It's a little bit challenging.
If it makes you feel any better, everything you've brought up, I thought while I was watching it this week, I wonder if people get that. Like, yeah. I get it, but it, like, those are all things that struck me as like, ooh, Holden's kind of angry out of nowhere. I mean, I know why he's angry, but like all of those things, and the colony ship, with the colony ship especially, I'm like, wow, I'm really glad I know about that, because when you show me that, it just looks like the station. Like, I can't tell that's the colony ship.
You know what's interesting is, I don't often encounter this in the shows that we review, but the Expanse, I like. And I know you love, like, this is a different experience for you. Being somebody who read the books, who's seeing it come to life in a wonderful way, you are having a Game of Thrones experience.
Totally.
And I know what it feels like to have a Game of Thrones experience. I also know how frustrating it is to watch people who didn't read the books watch Game of Thrones, and it's like, they spelled it out. It's so obvious. That's clearly. And I would love to, I mean, I'm checking in with you on how I'm doing, following everything, but I would also love to hear from the readers whether or not, like, am I representing, like, am I underwatching? Am I not watching close enough, and that's why I'm dumb on all this stuff?
Yeah, if you're out there having the same frustrations as Brian, or even different ones,
not even frustrations, but like having those same disconnect moments that once you learn it, you're like, oh, of course I should have seen that, but I didn't.
And I think it bears giving our usual, we absolutely adore this show, but it's always more interesting to talk about the little things that maybe diverge than to just sit here and have a love letter, even if it is the day before Valentine's.
I would say The Expanse more than most shows. We want to hear from you guys. So hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com while we talk about
Justified, episode 5, season 5. We got a lot going on in this. Boyd opens up by taking care of a problem, don't he?
Oh my God. Here's the funny part, Tom, is I wrote you, like we briefly texted while I was watching it this morning, right? And I was like, holy cow, that opening. I was only halfway through the opening. Like, all I knew is that he was in the room talking to the mortician. While
you hadn't even got to the end of that scene.
Yeah, no. By the time I said, holy crap, that beginning, that was when it was clear that Boyd was ruining the guy's reputation, that he had planted bodies, that he had created a false narrative of this guy being a criminal. And I wrote you, holy cow, this ending. You're like, yeah. And then I hit resume after we were finished and then went on to see, like, oh, no. Like, generate, like, I'm waiting until you're awake so I can explain how utterly ruined you are and how everyone's dead. Bah, 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 bah. And then,
and I won't give you a chance to even protest. Like, usually you get the, Boyd, don't do it. He starts to say, Boyd, don't do it. Done.
Yep.
Like, you're over. Well, and then, of course, we say goodbye to the sheriff as well.
Speaking of which, that scene that sets up the killing of the sheriff, I was so, I don't want to say distracted. It is a very out of context scene where all of a sudden you're watching Boyd essentially, reprise his minister role, consoling someone about the nature of life and responsibility and what you have to do. And all I could think about, like, what a great set. Wow, that's really framed really well. And so I'm like, I'm sure this is all here for a reason. So I wasn't thinking, like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Who is this guy? But it did a perfect enough job of making enough of an impression that minutes later, when I see him, Boyd gets up and leaves, guy walks in, murders the sheriff, and I'm like, brilliant. Boyd as hillbilly Vic Mackey works for me very much.
Well, and this is just one of the plots of this episode, and we'll get to the others. But so this all looks great. He goes to Ava and he's like, "Look, Ava, I know you were doubting me. I know you're frustrated, but you're getting out because all the case against you has fallen apart. You are no longer, there's no longer any witnesses. You're going to get out of here tomorrow." And everything looks great. And then they leave you there. And you think, oh, okay, that's where the Crowders are. I wonder what's going to happen tomorrow morning when Boyd shows up at 8:59 a.m. And then towards the very end of the episode, you see Officer Gilmore girls come back in and not just plant a shiv to get her in trouble, but stab himself with it in order to make sure that she is not getting out of prison and going to solitary.
Yeah. That felt undermotivated to me.
It's undermotivated by him. I have the very persistent sense that there is someone else working behind that. She was protected inside was a little odd to me. I'm like, Boyd doesn't have that kind of sway. And now that Boyd has pulled his moves, I'm wondering if whoever was protecting her is no longer protecting her, and we're going to be introduced to another party of this.
You know what? Now that you're saying that, I would totally buy it. If there was just a little scene of, like, somebody like, that seemed like a bit much. It's like, hey, man, bigger forces at play than you know, or whatever. Like something, just an acknowledgement. That's kind of what
her roommate tries to tell her. But, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, if that is the case, I'll buy it. But in the moment, I was like, that's an awful... Like, to expend the political capital to buy off somebody who's going to lie and stay in jail for a very long time, and then also to procure a thing and stab yourself with it, all because of the crime of not wanting to get naked for him.
If he's acting alone, it's quite over the top.
Yeah, right.
It needs some more explanation.
Yeah, no, but you're right. Through that lens, I think that makes sense. Meanwhile, okay. You've got that end moment where they dude, Wash shows up and he's just like the world's most badass terrible hitman, like he shows up and clearly shows what a badass he is, And then he's the Boba Fett of Justified. He shows up with all the trappings of being the biggest badass, and then blind Han Solo knocks him in the back, and a Wilhelm scream goes, and he lands in the Sarlacc pit. That was honestly, a travesty.
When I see Alan Tudyk show up at the beginning of this episode, I'm like, oh, he doesn't survive. Because Alan Tudyk, if he's not in the cast, he doesn't stick around for long. Like
yes.
That's his motivation. And that's not Justified's fault that I have that perception of Alan Tudyk, but none of that surprised me. And they built him up enough as a badass that when Art had his 2 showdowns, one in the parking lot and one inside the diner, I loved every minute of that.
I loved 50% of the minutes of that.
Oh, come on. I love seeing Art like playing the marshal. Like you never get to see him do that.
It was great. The diner scene was expert from beginning to end. The tension of the shootout by the shipping containers and stuff was fantastic. The payoff of bet you never thought someone would sneak up behind you. It's like, of course he did. He's Boba Fett. And now you're just no.
Yeah. Also was not expecting Theo Tonin to be in a shipping container. I kind of just forgot Theo Tonin was an element of this conversation, to be honest.
To be honest, it makes sense. I'm okay with it because Theo Tonin was kind of you've got these different roles, right? Art is so high above Rayland that we just assume he's doing art stuff up in art stratosphere, right?
Yeah, right.
And Theo Tonin we don't think about because he's so high above Win Duffy. He's up there doing Theo Tonin stuff. And so I didn't mind being all like, oh, hey, Sky God on the left got Sky God on the right. You know, and our Sky God looks real happy and seems real content before retirement, which, by the way, okay, Tom.
What? Yes.
What does it mean when a show you like makes a moment of showing somebody happy and a character says, not a bad way to wrap up only 8 months before retirement?
Well, it just means that he's going to have a really happy retirement, Brian. I don't understand why you're making
this person is a beloved father figure that at the end of this episode you see.
Right, and I feel happy for Art because he had this big get. I guess there's the disappointment of him suspecting that Raylan might be involved in something shady, and of course Raylan basically admits it to him at the end of this episode. That's not fun for Art.
Tom. What's the last thing that happens after he gets everything he wants and then reconciles and has honest dialogue with our main conflicted character?
He hasn't had the honest dialogue yet. Art's not going to die yet.
Tom!
No, you can't take Art from me. No. No. It's funny. I was like, well, I guess we don't have Art in season 6.
Oh, did you think the same thing?
Yeah, you kind of, Maybe it's another twist. I don't know, but
who knows? Maybe the Galactica and the Pegasus stay with the fleet. Maybe.
I did really like that Raylan was honest with him at the end, and I'm very curious to see how that plays out. Because I didn't like how they were sort of shading Raylan to become too Boyd-like. Like, oh, he is covering up things. He is hiding things.
What is the real because if I remember correctly, like they're thinking like they started a rumor about having someone in their pocket and it wasn't Raylan. Like Raylan has enough dirt on his hands from other things, but like they were closing the trap on him for the wrong stuff
earlier, right? And now Picker is the one who's telling the truth of there was a marshal or there was a law enforcement person there,
right?
The night that Nikki was killed,
right?
And that's getting conflated with those earlier stories as well. And so Art doesn't know what's true and what isn't, but he knows something is true, and he can't believe that Raylan would do all of those things. But he knows that Picker probably isn't telling a lie. And then, of course, Picker changes his story because Raylan weighs on him, and Art knows that Raylan weighs on him. And so I really like that Raylan is like, no, you know what? I need to play it. I need to shoot straight with Art.
Well, the only thing that I'm 100% clear that Raylan did dishonest, that he definitely was keeping from Art, was his wife stealing the money.
Oh, no. Yeah, well, there's that. But there's also being on the tarmac when Nikki was shot.
Oh, that's right.
That's the thing he's going to have to admit to Art if he wants to play it straight is, I knew that happened. Did I play a part in it? No. Did I violate my oath as a marshal by not reporting it? Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, that's good. That's good that's clear now. Anyway, continue to like it. Really good episode. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think your opinion is justified.
Yeah, no points, no action.
That's it for this episode, folks. We're gonna have to start thinking about a post-Art universe.
No, I'm sure that he's gonna
be fine, Brian. He's gonna be fine. I don't know why you're saying that.
10 acres, he could just run around.
He'll just be at the Rainbow Bridge.
Oh no! Too real! What are you doing?
All right, thanks everybody. Have a good weekend.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.